I stepped out of the black town car onto the crisp Manhattan sidewalk, the late afternoon sun glinting off the glass towers of Tribeca. My suitcase wheels clicked softly behind me. 2 weeks in Sedona had left my skin glowing and my mind clearer than it had been in years.
Vanessa had insisted on the retreat. "You deserve it, Mom," she'd said on the phone, her voice warm like expensive honey. "Consider it my gift. Lily and I will hold down the fort." I smiled at the memory as I approached the entrance of the penthouse building.
The doorman, usually so quick with a nod, shifted uncomfortably in his uniform. "Mrs. Whitaker," he said, voice low. "I'm afraid there's been a change." I paused, keycard already in hand. "A change?" He avoided my eyes. The locks were updated this morning, new codes. Inside the marble lobby, I tore it open under the soft glow of recessed lighting. It wasn't a welcome note. It was an eviction notice, addressed to me, for my own rent-controlled apartment on the Upper West Side. The one I had kept for 16 years as a quiet backup. The one Vanessa had begged me to co-sign papers on years ago so she could help manage the lease. The notice gave me 30 days, signed by the building management, and countersigned by Vanessa Whitaker Harrington. My breath stayed even. I folded the paper once, twice, and slipped it into my coat pocket. I rode the private elevator up anyway. Muscle memory. 42nd floor. When the doors opened, the hallway smelled of fresh lilies and vanilla diffusers. The penthouse door stood ajar. I pushed it wider.
My voice sounded steadier than I felt. I wanted to surprise Lily with these. I lifted the small bag of turquoise jewelry I had bought in Sedona. Lily looked up, eyes bright, for half a second, then glanced at her mother. Vanessa set her wine down.
"That's sweet, but we need to talk."
She walked over, heels clicking on the polished concrete floors, and handed me another envelope. Thicker this time. Manila.
"Open it,"
she said. I did. Inside were copies of documents, bank statements, lease amendments,
and on top, a formal petition filed with the New York Supreme Court. Petition for appointment of guardian of the person and property. Grounds: mental incompetence due to advanced age and questionable financial decision-making. My own daughter had signed it. "And honestly, Mom, it's time you lived independently. You always said you valued your freedom."
I stared at her. The woman I had raised. The woman whose Ivy League tuition I paid in full. Whose wedding at the plaza had cost me $380,000.
I stepped out into the lobby, past the nervous doorman, and into the cool evening air. My town car was still waiting. I slid into the back seat and gave the driver the name of a quiet, midtown hotel I had once used for business trips. Only then did I pull out my phone and open the contacts.
"Ring your best forensic accountant." A pause. Then, "What happened?" I looked out at the glittering lights of lower Manhattan. "My daughter just kicked me out," I said, "and she's trying to take everything." I opened the manila envelope again, slowly, right there in the back of the car.
The petition papers rustled under my fingers. What I found inside would change everything. I checked into the Langham Hotel under my own name, paid cash for the first 3 nights, and asked for a corner suite on a high floor. The room smelled of fresh linen and quiet money. No lilies, no vanilla diffusers, just silence. I set my suitcase by the window, overlooking the lights of Midtown, and opened my laptop. The screen glowed blue in the dark. For the next 4 hours, I did not sleep. I pulled every old bank statement I had scanned years ago onto an encrypted drive. Just the steady tick of the wall clock. The next morning, I arrived at Margaret Klein's office on the 34th floor of a nondescript building near Rockefeller Center. Margaret had not changed. Steel gray hair pulled back tight, navy suit sharp enough to cut paper. She greeted me with a firm handshake and no small talk. "Sit," she said. "Tell me everything." I laid the eviction notice and the petition on her glass conference table. Then I slid across a USB drive containing the scanned transfers. Margaret scanned the petition first. Her lips tightened. "They're moving fast," she said. "Mental incompetence. That's an emergency hearing route. They want a guardian appointed before you can react. Usually they need medical evidence. Have you seen a doctor lately?" "Annual physical 3 months ago. Clean bill. Cholesterol 162. Said it would ruin his hedge fund reputation." Margaret's eyebrows rose a fraction. "You have proof of those wires?" "Every one. Dated, amounted, destination accounts." She leaned back. "Ellie, this is elder financial exploitation. Clear pattern. But to freeze anything, we need more." "We start with a forensic accountant. I know one. XSEC. Brutal with numbers." By 10:30 that morning, the accountant, a quiet man named Richard Lang, joined us. Thin glasses, permanent frown. He plugged in the USB and began scrolling. While he worked, Margaret poured coffee I did not drink. Vanessa called at 11:42 a.m. I let it ring to voicemail. The message played on speaker. "Mom, the movers are at your apartment now. They'll store everything safely until you choose a new place. Please don't make this difficult. Lily misses you already." I pressed delete without answering. Richard looked up from his screen. "Mrs. Whitaker, I see 3 wires totaling $940,000 labeled Lily Education Trust. But the receiving account belongs to a shell company in the Caymans, same company linked to Derek Harrington's personal trading account." Margaret's pen stopped moving. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger yet. Calculation. 940,000, I repeated slowly. Richard nodded. Vanessa had taken almost $1 million and called it her daughter's future. I closed the folder. "Margaret," I said, voice level, "draft the restraining order and tell your accountant to dig deeper. Every transfer, every lie." She studied my face for a long moment. "You're not crying," she observed. This time a text from Vanessa. "We froze the joint emergency account for your protection. 187,000 safe now. Don't worry, we'll manage it." I read it twice. Beneficiaries listed only after my death or incapacity, and only with my written approval. Vanessa had never asked to see them. She assumed the money flowed because I was weak. I highlighted one clause in particular. Every smile they had faked. I poured another glass of water and drank it slowly. Tomorrow the real work began. Because tomorrow I would start building the case that would strip them of everything they thought they had already won. And when the time came, I would hand them the bill, line by line. I woke at 5:47 a.m. without an alarm. The hotel suite was still dark. I made coffee in the small kitchenette, black, no sugar, and opened the encrypted folder on my laptop. Systematic documentation. That was the phrase Margaret had used. I created a new spreadsheet. Richard Lang arrived at my suite at 8:15 a.m. He carried a slim briefcase and smelled faintly of printer ink. No pleasantries. He plugged his laptop into mine and began syncing the new data. 2 more wires surfaced overnight, he said. Both from the joint emergency account you still had signing rights on. Total 187,000, same as the text your daughter sent. They moved it yesterday at 9:03 a.m. I nodded once. Can we get it back? Not yet, but we can freeze the account it landed in. I've already drafted the motion.
Margaret joined us by video at 8:45 a.m. Her face filled the screen, sharp and focused. Instagram post went live at 7:22 a.m., she said. Vanessa. Caption reads, "Finally setting healthy boundaries with toxic family. Sometimes love means letting go."
They sent movers yesterday morning, Mrs. Whitaker. Said it was all arranged. The door to 4B opened with the same key I had used for 16 years. Inside, half the apartment was already boxed. My books, my late husband's photographs. I opened the first box, my winter coats. The second, tax returns from 2018 to 2022, all in order. The third, personal letters. I lifted a stack and paused. Beneath them lay an old leather journal, brown, cracked at the spine. I had not seen it in 12 years. My husband's handwriting on the cover. Private, for Eleanor only. I sat on the edge of the half-packed bed and opened it. The pages were dated the month before he died, his final entries. One page was folded and taped inside. I peeled it open. My dearest Ellie, if you are reading this, I am gone, and you are facing what I feared most. Vanessa has always seen money first. I set up a revocable trust last month with Klein Associates. 2 million seed. You are sole trustee, full discretion. She knows nothing. Love forever. Robert. I read the words twice. Then I closed the journal and placed it in my handbag. My hands did not shake. The trust, the one I had managed quietly all these years, growing it to 8.4 million. Robert had hidden the original intent from our daughter. He had seen her coming. I stood and took photos of the remaining boxes. Timestamp, 2:47 p.m. I noted the forged lease amendment on the kitchen counter. Then I walked to the small safe in the closet, dialed the combination, and removed the chase key. It felt cool in my palm. As I locked the apartment door behind me for the last time, my phone buzzed. A new text from Vanessa. Movers finished. Everything safe in storage. The senior community in New Jersey confirmed your application. Tour next week? I did not reply. Back in the town car, I opened the journal again. The invitation arrived by text at 6:12 p.m. that same evening. Vanessa's number lit up my phone. Dinner tomorrow night, Le Bernardin, 8 sharp. Just the 3 of us. Time to talk like adults. Lily is staying with the sitter. I read it twice. Then I typed one word. Fine. No exclamation point. Mom, she said, standing to kiss my cheek. Her perfume was the same one she'd worn since college. You look rested. The hotel treating you well? I sat. It's adequate. She poured me water from the bottle on the table. We ordered the tasting menu. No need to look at prices. So, Vanessa began, voice smooth as the cashmere she favored. We've been thinking. The incompetence filing is stressful for everyone, especially Lily. She keeps asking why Grandma isn't home. Derek leaned in. His breath carried the scotch already. What we propose is cleaner. Pre-drafted agreement. 3 pages. My name already typed at the top. I opened it. Scanned the first paragraph. Power of attorney over all financial affairs. Revocable only by mutual consent. Generous, I said quietly. $10,000 a month. Vanessa nodded, encouraged. We thought you'd appreciate the stability. I turned to page 2. Listed assets. The trust fund. My remaining personal accounts. The Upper West Side apartment lease they had already terminated. How much have you already taken? I asked. Voice level, almost conversational. Derek snorted. Taken? I waved him off. No alcohol. I reached into my handbag, pulled out my phone, and set it face down on the table. Recording already running. They never noticed. Help, I repeated. Like the help you gave me by changing the locks while I was in Sedona. Vanessa leaned forward. The one I had given her for her 30th birthday. Sign it tonight, Mom, she said, or we'll have no choice but to proceed with the mental incompetence filing. The words hung there. I looked at the pen, then at her face, then at Derek, who was already signaling for another scotch. I picked up the pen. For one heartbeat, Vanessa's eyes brightened. Victory. I clicked it once. Then I set it down beside the untouched souffle. Not tonight, I said. My voice was calm, almost gentle. Derek laughed again. Told you she'd be difficult. Vanessa's smile froze. I stood. The recording on my phone had captured every word, every number, every threat. I left the agreement exactly where it lay. As I walked out of Le Bernardin, the city lights blurred slightly against the glass doors. But my steps stayed even, because tomorrow, Margaret would receive the audio file. This is gold. The next morning, Richard Lang was already in the hotel suite when I returned from my 6 a.m. walk. He had printed fresh spreadsheets, 3 pages, columns of red ink. New findings, he said without greeting. Falsified expense reports, 3 years. Vanessa submitted them through the joint emergency account you still co-signed. Total unauthorized withdrawals, $1.68 million. I poured coffee, black. Break it down. He slid the top sheet across. 412,000 labeled home renovations for the penthouse. Plus the 940 we already knew, Richard added. Grand total now stands at 3.42 million, all traceable to accounts they control. Margaret arrived at 8:30 a.m. sharp. She brought a new face with her. Jonathan Hale, top estate attorney specializing in elder financial abuse cases. Tall, silver hair, voice like quiet thunder. He reviewed the spreadsheets in silence for 7 minutes. Textbook exploitation, he said finally. Pattern of undue influence. We have the forged lease amendment, the fake power of attorney draft from last night, the Instagram post establishing motive, and now the audio where they admit to managing your affairs against your will. I sat at the head of the small conference table I had arranged in the suite. What about the trust? Hale opened a fresh folder. Your husband's revocable trust. 8.4 million current value. No speculation. Exactly what a responsible trustee would do. Hale leaned forward. We file the response tomorrow. Motion to dismiss the incompetence petition. Motion for temporary restraining order on all accounts tied to the disputed funds. He ran his finger along my husband's handwritten note. This is admissible, he said. Dated. Witnessed by the bank manager at the time. It shows intent to protect you from exactly this scenario. I stood and walked to the window. The city stretched below, indifferent. I had paid for Vanessa's entire life. College, $680,000. Wedding, $380,000. Penthouse down payment, $1.1 million. And still she wanted more. The calculation no longer hurt. It clarified. At 3 p.m., we met with the forensic accountant again. He had uncovered one more layer. Vanessa had used a small business entity she controlled to route another $260,000 in consulting fees from the trust. Fake invoices, fake signatures. Total now $3.68 million, Richard said. I closed my eyes for 1 second. By 5:30 p.m., the suite was quiet again. I sat alone with the spreadsheets open. Columns of red ink stared back like evidence in a trial. $3.68 million. That was the hole they had dug. I closed the laptop and looked at the city lights beginning to flicker on. The trust was safe. The evidence was ironclad. The attorneys were armed. I had everything I needed. Except one thing. The certified letter arrived by courier at 7:42 p.m. Thick envelope, red stamp, New York Supreme Court. I opened it slowly at the desk. Inside was the official notice. Vanessa had filed the mental incompetence lawsuit 2 days earlier than expected. She had requested an emergency hearing. Date, next Thursday. Time, 9 a.m. Courtroom 14B. They overreached. They listed the Tribeca penthouse as a joint marital asset in the petition. Claimed it was purchased with marital funds. I paused. It wasn't. No, Margaret said, voice edged with satisfaction. It was purchased entirely with your money. 1.1 million wire from the trust. But tonight I let the silence settle. Because when Thursday came, the courtroom would hear every single dollar. And Vanessa would finally understand that the bill had come due. The emergency hearing was called to order at 9:07 a.m. in courtroom 14B of the New York Supreme Court. She has transferred millions to her daughter over the years with no documentation, no repayment schedule. She maintains outdated investment strategies that have left $8.4 million stagnant. Meanwhile, she refuses reasonable offers of assistance. This is a textbook case of financial self-sabotage. He slid a thick binder across the bench. We have affidavits, bank records, even a recorded dinner conversation where she became agitated and refused basic safeguards. I kept my hands folded in my lap. My breathing stayed even.
Your Honor, we request a continuance, 30 days. The respondent has not yet had time to review the full petition or gather counter-evidence. The judge, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes, nodded once. Granted, but make it 21.
This is an emergency motion. Langford smiled like he had already won. We also ask that interim control of liquid assets be granted to the petitioner pending full hearing. Margaret countered without missing a beat.
Objection. No evidence of imminent harm has been shown.
In fact, the opposite. She handed the clerk a sealed envelope.
We submit under seal the first tranche of forensic accounting. $3.68 million in unauthorized transfers, falsified memos, shell accounts, all tied directly to the petitioners. The judge accepted the envelope.
Langford actually laughed when I mentioned the forensic report.
I adjusted my coat against the October wind. Good. Jonathan Hale joined us. The sealed packet includes the first 27 wire transfers. They'll see the Cayman account tomorrow when they get their copy. I nodded once.
Let them see it. I returned to the hotel suite at 11:20 a.m. No lunch. I opened the laptop and added the morning's court transcript notes to the master spreadsheet. Column titled Hearing, October 17th. One new row. Petitioners claim stagnation of $8.4 million trust. I highlighted it in red. At 4:30 p.m., my phone rang. Margaret. They just filed an amended petition, she said. Her voice had an edge I had not heard before. Emergency addendum. They're trying to accelerate again. I waited. They listed the Tribeca penthouse as a joint marital asset, she continued. Claimed it was purchased with marital funds belonging to Vanessa and Derek. They want it frozen as part of the guardianship estate. I closed the laptop lid slowly. The down payment, I said. 1.1 million, Margaret confirmed. wired directly from your revocable trust on the exact date of closing. We have the wire confirmation. The deed is in Vanessa's name only because you allowed it as a gift. But the money was yours. 100%. She let the silence sit for 2 beats. They just made their biggest mistake, Ellie. They put the penthouse on record as joint. And we now have proof it was purchased entirely with your money. I looked out at the city. The lights were already coming on even though the sun had not yet set. Perfect, I said. The word left my mouth flat, cold, final. Margaret exhaled. We file the counter motion first thing tomorrow. Lien on the penthouse. Full restitution demand. This changes everything. I ended the call without goodbye. I poured a single glass of water and stood at the window. Tonight, she would receive the amended filings, and tomorrow she would understand that the hole she had dug now had her own address on it. I set the glass down. The calculation was no longer just numbers. It had become a cage, and I held the only key. I activated the revocable trust at 8:17 a.m. the next morning. Jonathan Hale sat across from me in the hotel suite, documents spread across the table like a battle map. Margaret stood by the window, phone already dialing the process server. Sign here, Hale said, sliding the activation form forward. And here. This triggers full trustee authority, immediate suspension of any distributions, immediate demand for accounting. I signed. 3 strokes of the pen, and flourish. The ink dried in seconds. Next, I said. Hale handed me the formal demand letter. 6 pages, itemized. Repayment demanded, $3.68 million, plus interest at 8% compounded annually, due in 14 days. Attached, the lien notice on the Tribeca penthouse, recorded that morning at the county clerk's office. $4.2 million current appraised value. I did not call Vanessa. I did not text. I simply waited. At 6:45 p.m., she was hosting the annual charity gala for the Children's Literacy Fund at the Mandarin Oriental. 400 guests, black tie, $250 per plate. I knew because Richard Lang had pulled the event details from her public Instagram story that morning. I sat in the hotel suite and reviewed the trust portfolio one last time. $8.4 million, 9.2% average return, every penny still mine. At 8:22 p.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. It was the process server. Documents delivered, Mrs. Whitaker. She was on stage giving the welcome speech, took the envelope right in front of the microphone. I hung up. I could picture it. Vanessa in floor-length cream silk, spotlight on her face, smile fixed for the cameras. The thick manila envelope handed to her by a uniformed courier. The room of 200 donors watching. Her face would have drained of color in under 3 seconds. At 8:47 p.m., Derek's phone rang in the middle of the gala. His hedge fund compliance officer. Margin call. $1.2 million due by morning. The frozen Cayman account had been flagged, all trading lines cut. I learned this later from the court filings. At 11:58 p.m., the knock on my hotel door was not polite. It was fists. I opened it still in the charcoal suit from court. No robe, no surprise on my face. Vanessa stood in the hallway, hair slightly wild from the gala, mascara smudged just enough to show the panic beneath. Derek hovered behind her, tie gone, face red. "What the hell have you done?" she hissed, pushing past me into the suite. I closed the door. Quiet click. Derek followed, breathing hard. "You put a lien on our home?"
Our home? Are you insane? I walked to the minibar, poured 2 glasses of water, set them on the low table, no ice. "Sit down, Vanessa," I said. My voice was calm, almost gentle. She did not sit. "You filed a lien? In front of 200 people? I was accepting a plaque." I remained standing. 3.68 million. That is the exact amount you took, documented. Every wire, every forged memo. The court has it now. Derek slammed a hand on the table. The water glasses trembled. "This is extortion. We'll fight it. We'll—" "Sit," I repeated. Vanessa's eyes flicked to the glasses, then back to me. She lowered herself onto the edge of the sofa. Derek stayed standing. I sat opposite them, back straight, hands folded. "You changed the locks while I was away," I said. "You filed to declare me incompetent. You forged a lease termination. You drained accounts I still controlled. And you did it all while smiling at Lily and calling it love." Vanessa opened her mouth. I raised one finger. She closed it. "The lien is real," I continued. "The demand letter is real. The trust is revocable, and I am sole trustee. Your husband's gambling debts are now public record in the hedge fund compliance file. Your company has already been notified of the scandal." Derek's face went pale. "You can't." "I already did." I slid a single sheet across the table. Summary of the demand. 3.68 million. Plus 412,000 in accrued interest. Total due, 4.092 million. 14 days. Vanessa stared at the number. Her hands shook. "You're my mother," she whispered. I looked at her for a long moment. "I was," I said. The silence stretched. Derek's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and swore under his breath. Another call from the fund. Vanessa's eyes filled. Not quite tears. Not yet. "Mom, Ellie, we can fix this. Drop the lien. We'll pay back what we can. Just—" I stood. "No negotiations tonight," I said. "The numbers are the numbers. Read the letter. Every line." I walked to the door and opened it. Vanessa rose slowly. Derek followed, shoulders slumped. At the threshold, she turned. "You'll regret this." I met her eyes. "No," I said. "I won't." The door closed behind them. I returned to the table and picked up the untouched water glasses, poured them down the sink. Then I sat at the laptop and opened the master spreadsheet. One new row. Demand served, October 18th, 8:22 p.m. The total still read 4.092 million. But now it had a deadline, and a lien, and a courtroom that would see every cent. I closed the laptop. The suite was quiet again. Vanessa had stormed in, demanding answers. She had left with the bill, and tomorrow the real pressure would begin. Because 14 days was not long. Not when the numbers were this precise. Not when the cage had already closed. The full hearing convened at 9 a.m. sharp on November 7th in courtroom 14B. I arrived at 8:40 a.m. Same charcoal suit, same low knot, same gold band on my left hand. I took the same seat in the third row. Margaret and Jonathan Hale flanked me. Richard Lang sat directly behind with 2 thick binders of bank statements. Vanessa and Derek entered at 8:55 a.m. Her cream suit looked slept in. Derek's eyes were bloodshot. Victor Langford, their attorney, carried himself like a man who had already lost, but refused to admit it. The judge entered.
No small talk.
We begin with the petitioner's case. Langford rose. His voice cracked on the first sentence. Your Honor, the evidence shows Eleanor Whittaker transferred $3.68 million without proper oversight. She is 70 years old.
Her refusal to accept assistance constitutes clear mental incompetence. He presented the same binder from the emergency hearing. It looked thinner now. Margaret stood next. Your Honor, we submit the complete forensic report. 147 pages, every wire traced, every falsified memo exposed. The trust fund in question is revocable. Sole trustee, Eleanor Whittaker. Full discretion granted by the decedent's handwritten instructions 12 years ago. She handed the judge the original leather journal page. Robert's words, dated, witnessed. The courtroom fell silent while the judge read. Then she looked up. Mr. Langford, do you have rebuttal evidence for these transfers? Langford shuffled papers. They were gifts, Your Honor. Family support. Margaret slid a single bank statement forward. Gifts do not require forged signatures, Your Honor, nor do they route through Cayman shell companies to cover margin calls. The judge turned pages. Her face did not change, but her voice did. Motion for guardianship denied, she said. The respondent is fully competent. Vanessa's shoulders jerked. The judge continued. All assets tied to the disputed transfers are frozen, effective immediately. This includes the joint emergency account, the Cayman holdings, and any accounts linked to Derek Harrington's hedge fund. Derek's face went gray. Further, the judge said, a temporary restraining order is issued. Vanessa Whittaker Harrington and Derek Harrington shall have no contact with Eleanor Whittaker. No calls, no texts, no indirect communication through third parties. Violation will result in contempt. She signed the order with a single stroke. Langford tried one last time.
Your Honor, the penthouse, the lien stands, the judge cut in. Restitution of $4.092 million is ordered, 14 days from service. Failure to pay will trigger foreclosure proceedings on the Tribeca property. The gavel fell. I did not smile. I simply closed my notebook.
Outside the courtroom, the hallway buzzed. Reporters had caught wind. 2 cameras flashed. Vanessa's marketing firm had already issued a statement. I saw the headline on a phone screen as I passed. Senior VP placed on administrative leave pending internal review. Derek's phone rang nonstop. Margin call. Again, this time public. His fund's compliance officer left a voicemail loud enough for the hallway to hear. All trading lines terminated. Gambling debts now under SEC review. Vanessa walked out last. Her heels dragged. She spotted me at the elevator bank. Margaret and Hale moved to block her path, but I raised one hand. 2 minutes, I said. They stepped aside. Vanessa approached, voice shaking, mascara gone. Mom, Ellie, I'm sorry. We were desperate. Derek's fund, the debts. I never meant for it to go this far. Please, help us, just this once. For Lily. She reached out, not to touch, just to beg. I looked at her, the woman I had raised, the woman who had changed the locks, the woman who had signed the petition. The hallway lights hummed overhead. The elevator doors opened with a soft ding. I met her eyes one final time. You're dead to me. 3 words. Cold, even, final. I stepped into the elevator. The doors closed between us. Margaret exhaled beside me. It's over, Ellie. I watched the floor numbers descend. No, I said. It's just beginning. The lien would force the sale. The restitution would empty their accounts. Derek's career was finished. Vanessa's reputation was ash, and Lily would be protected. The trust would see to that. Professional oversight, strict conditions, my granddaughter would never learn the taste of entitlement. I stepped out into the November air.
The city moved around me, indifferent. $4.092 million. It was not revenge. It was balance. And the scales had finally tipped. I stepped out of the courthouse into the sharp November wind and did not look back. The town car waited at the curb. I gave the driver an address I had not spoken aloud in 6 years. 47 Cranberry Street, Brooklyn Heights. The brownstone was mine. Paid off in full the year after Robert died. 2.8 million cash from the same trust I had guarded so quietly. 4 bedrooms, garden in back, river view from the top floor. Vanessa had never known it existed. She thought my only address was the rent-controlled apartment she had already stripped from me. I unlocked the heavy oak door at 11:42 a.m. The air inside smelled of fresh paint and polished wood. I had arranged the cleaning crew 2 weeks earlier through Margaret's assistant. No movers needed. Everything I owned that still mattered had been shipped here in sealed crates the day after the locks changed in Tribeca. I walked through the empty rooms. Sunlight slanted across the wide plank floors. In the front parlor, I set my handbag on the marble mantel and opened the trust folder one final time. Section 9.2, Beneficiary Redesignation. I signed the amendment. Sole beneficiary, Lily Harrington, age 9. Funds to be held in trust until age 25. Professional trustee appointed, Margaret Klein. Annual disbursements limited to tuition, medical, and modest living expenses. No early access. No loans. No contact from Vanessa or Derek unless Lily herself requested it after age 18, and only with written approval from the trustee. I dated it November 7th, 11:58 a.m. $4.092 million would be repaid first. The remainder would grow for Lily under strict rules. She would never learn the taste of money taken from someone else's dignity. At 2:17 p.m., Margaret called. "Foreclosure notice served on the penthouse," she said. "Bank moved at 9 this morning. They have 30 days to vacate. Derek's hedge fund filed for Chapter 11 at noon. Vanessa's company extended her administrative leave indefinitely. Scandal made the post." I stood at the bay window overlooking the quiet street. "Good." She paused. "The restitution check cleared this morning. $4.092 million wired directly back to the trust. They used the last of their liquidity to avoid immediate contempt." I closed my eyes for 1 second. The number settled inside me like a final ledger line. "Close the file, Margaret," I said. "We're done." That evening I unpacked the last crate myself. My late husband's photographs. The leather journal. A single turquoise bracelet from Sedona I had bought for Lily but never gave her. I placed it in a small velvet box on the mantel. One day when she was ready, I would hand it to her myself. The doorbell rang at 7:05 p.m. A courier. Single envelope. No return address. Handwritten, Vanessa's neat, slanted script. I carried it to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and sat at the island. I opened it slowly. "Mom, I know you won't answer. I don't blame you. Derek and I are moving to a 1-bedroom in Queens. Lily is with my sister until we stabilize. I lost my job yesterday. The bank took the penthouse keys this afternoon. I keep thinking about the dinner at Le Bernardin, about the way you set the pen down. I thought I was protecting Lily. I was only protecting myself.
I'm sorry. For everything.
If you ever want to see your granddaughter, I won't stop you. Vanessa. I read it once, every word. Then I folded the letter along its original creases, slid it back into the envelope, and placed it in the bottom drawer of the sideboard. I did not lock the drawer. I simply closed it. No reply.
No tears. No second chances. I walked upstairs to the master bedroom. The river glittered beyond the windows. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at my hands. 70 years old. Steady. Unbroken. Money had never been the point. The point was the quiet dignity of choosing your own roof, your own rules, your own future. The point was that no amount of cream cashmere or Tribeca glass could buy back the moment you changed the locks on the woman who had given you everything. I had paid for her life with $2.7 million and 12 years of silence. She had repaid me with an eviction notice and a courtroom lie. The scales were even now. I stood and opened the closet. My few remaining suits hung in perfect order. I chose the charcoal one for tomorrow. Lily's school play was next week. I had already bought the ticket under my new name at the box office. Front row. No one would know I was there until the lights came up. I turned off the lamp. The brownstone settled around me, solid and paid for. No joint accounts, no forged signatures. No more smiles that hid knives. Independence was not loud. It was this. A paid-off house. A protected granddaughter. A drawer that would stay closed. And the calm knowledge that I had taken back every single dollar they thought they could steal. If you're watching this, and you've ever been the one who gave everything only to have the locks changed behind your back, know this. The numbers always tell the truth eventually. Drop your own story in the comments. I read every single one. Because sometimes the strongest thing a woman can do is simply stop paying for the betrayal and start building the life they tried to take from her. The brownstone was quiet that night. I sat with a single glass of water and the river view. The numbers had spoken. The lien had held. The restitution had been paid. Vanessa and Derek had lost everything they thought they owned. The penthouse keys were handed over to the bank at 10 a.m. the following Monday. Derek's hedge fund collapsed under the SEC review. Vanessa's company terminated her contract the same week. They moved into a one-bedroom in Queens with 2 suitcases and the clothes on their backs. I did not watch. I did not check. Lily started the new school term with the tuition paid from the restructured trust. Professional oversight. No early access. No contact unless she asked for it herself one day. The turquoise bracelet from Sedona waited in the velvet box on the mantel. One day, when she was old enough to understand choices, I would give it to her in person. I closed the drawer on the letter for the last time. The scales were even. Money could not buy back the moment the locks changed. But quiet independence could rebuild everything they tried to take. I stood at the window and looked out at the city lights. 70 years old, steady hands, clear ledger. The calculation was finished. The life was mine again.